Have you ever just looked around and wondered why you're the one person who doesn't seem to get the hype? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the psychology of what it really means to resist the pull of the crowd.
You know the feeling, right? There's a new fashion trend, some viral challenge on social media, the latest must-have gadget, and literally everyone is jumping on board, but you just don't feel it. If that sounds familiar, you are definitely in the right place. Let's talk about that feeling of being just a little out of sync with whatever's popular, because a lot of the time, we tell ourselves a pretty negative story about it.
So when everyone else zigs, you zag. But what's really going on there? Are you just being difficult, or is there something much deeper happening psychologically when you resist that pull of the crowd? Let's find out.
Okay, this is where we need to completely reframe the conversation. On one side, you have the myth, right? The idea that people who ignore trends are boring or stubborn or just plain out of touch. But the psychological reality, it's so much more powerful. It's really about having an independent identity, being self-reliant, and finding your validation from within.
So, to really understand why some people don't follow trends, we first have to get a handle on why most people do. And believe me, it's this incredibly powerful force that's basically built right into our social DNA.
And look, this isn't a weakness, it's a really fundamental part of being human. For centuries, fitting in meant survival, and that deep-seated instinct is still with us today, even if the stakes are just about social acceptance and not, getting kicked out of the tribe. And there's actually a scientific name for this. It's called Normative Social Influence. It's that invisible pressure you feel to go along with the group, not because you think they're right, but just because you want to be liked and accepted. You don't want to be the one to stand out.
And it works in a pretty simple three-step process. First, we see what the group is doing. Second, we feel that innate human desire for social connection. And then third, we conform. We adjust our own behavior to match. This is the engine that drives trends, from fashion all the way to social media crazes.
And that brings us to the key question here. If this normative social influence is such a powerful force, what's going on in your mind if you don't really feel that pressure? Well, it turns out the reason you might resist trends isn't negative at all. Actually, it points to a pretty significant psychological strength.
And there it is, the big reveal. It's not about a lack of interest. It's about a surplus of self-awareness. You already know who you are, you know what you like, and you don't need the latest trend to define or validate that for you. I love this quote because it just captures the idea perfectly. If your identity is a moving target, you're constantly chasing the next trend just to feel like you belong. But if your identity is an anchor, you're stable, you're secure, no matter which way the cultural winds are blowing.
This is what's happening on the inside. You're operating on your own standards. Your sense of self-worth isn't tied to what's popular this week, and you're definitely not waiting for anyone else to give you permission to be you.
So how does this stable identity actually show up in your day-to-day life? Well, it fundamentally changes how you make all kinds of decisions, big and small. Just take a look at this comparison. Someone driven by image is constantly asking these external questions. What's popular? What will other people think? But someone with that stable identity, they're asking internal questions. What works for me? What do I actually need? One is guided by external approval, the other by personal standards. So when you choose the comfortable, practical shoes over the super trendy but really painful ones, you're not being unfashionable. No, you're making a function-based decision that comes directly from a secure sense of self. So when you really boil it all down, it all comes back to one central, powerful idea. And this is the main takeaway. That feeling of being out of sync is not a sign that something's wrong with you. It is evidence of a well-developed, independent, and internally validated identity. It's a strength. The next time you find yourself zagging when everybody else is zigging, don't just see it as being out of touch. Instead, see it as a quiet confirmation of who you are, totally independent of all the noise.